Javonte Williams just signed a new deal with the Dallas Cowboys that could set a framework for an extension for Chase Brown with the Bengals. Let's break it down.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the number one sports podcast network in the land. He's James Rapien, I'm Jake Liscow. We've got you covered every day here on Locked On Bengals, going all the way back to 2016, your best one-stop shop for all things Bengals anywhere online. Today, we're going to dive into what Javonte Williams' new deal with the Dallas Cowboys means for a potential Chase Brown extension and get into the discussion of whether or not the Bengals should be allocating resources and funds to the running back position, given everything we know about their offense, given what we know about the current deficiencies of the team. We'll get to that conversation a little bit later in the show. Before that, we're going to talk about why Javonte Williams is a good comparable for a potential Chase Brown extension and what exactly the deal is that Williams got from the Cowboys. Welcome back into all the everydayers. Welcome back to all of you who make Locked On Bengals your first listen. Appreciate you making us part of your routine. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, where you can use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. James, we have a running back in Dallas, Javonte Williams, who, for many reasons, is a pretty good comp for Chase Brown in terms of statistical production, in terms of age. There are some differences as well that we can talk about, but the first reaction for Bengals fans, I think, when they saw that deal was probably something to the effect of, oh, maybe that's probably a similar deal to what Chase Brown could get from the Bengals.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one. I thought it was just good news. I was like, oh, well, one, good for Javonte Williams, the fantasy footballer in me. Certainly was a fan of what he did this past year after a couple of injury-riddled years and underwhelming years in Denver. But two, you're right. You go to Chase Brown and you think about that and you think about the Bengals situation with him. And I had a clip, I'm pretty sure it was from the pod, but that got a lot of attention about whether or not you pay Chase Brown. And a few weeks ago, I was like, I don't know. Dax Hill priority, DJ Turner priority. And it was mixed reviews. People love Chase Brown. And it's really not about Chase Brown. It's about running back. And we've seen when the Bengals pay running backs, and they paid Joe Mixon $12 million per year, and that didn't feel great after that final year of his rookie contract. Essentially, that extension didn't feel great at all. And so if you're not doing $12 million over 4 years, a 4-year, $48 million extension, or a 3-year, $33 million extension to kind of look at other comps in the league, and we're talking about $24 million over 3 seasons, well, it just becomes more tolerable is probably the wrong word, but it's the word I'll use. A little more tolerable, a little more, oh, well, does this fit with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and how you want to build your roster? And I think it's more realistic for the Bengals. And I think it shows that, yeah, you can find running backs in the 5th round, develop them. He's a really good fit on the Bengals offense, and they still are worth paying once you get to that point. And it just depends. It depends on what Chase wants. But initially seeing this, I was like, oh, well, is that a blueprint? And then I dove into some of the numbers, which I'll let you get into. Dove into some of the numbers, and it's like, oh, well, this may help the Bengals if they do try to do what a lot of people want them to do. And that's extend their good young players, and Chase Brown is certainly one of those.
Yeah, and we talked about this a few weeks ago too, and there are priorities. There are competing priorities for the Bengals this offseason. That's part of the conversation. You mentioned Dax Hill. We'll mention DJ Turner here. We'll mention all of the needs on the defensive side of the ball. And one of the big points of conversation the last time we talked about this, James, was you bringing up, I think rightly, the point that what is the cost to extending Chase Brown for the Bengals? Because we know that there's always a little bit of give and take with the Bengals as they try to put together their team. And so depending on what the cost is, that's something that the Bengals have to navigate and have to deal with. But as far as extending their own players, Chase Brown does make a lot of sense because he does fit in to what the Bengals are doing on offense. He fits in as an all-round potential 3-down running back who, with Samaje Perine on the roster for 2026 as well, is a great little tandem for different styles and enough skill redundancy where either of those guys can play on third downs in different spots, and either of those guys can play on the goal line in different spots. And there's enough similarity and enough difference that that's a really good tandem for the Bengals. And he does get that player performance escalator anyway. So an extension could take that into account. And you do get the final year of the rookie deal. That's one of the differences I think that we can talk about between Javonte Williams and Chase Brown. Is one of them will be an extension that includes the final year of the rookie deal for purposes of prorating money and spreading out the cap hit. One of them is expired deal. He's no longer on his rookie deal. This is just straight up a 3-year contract for Javonte Williams. And the other big difference is Javonte Williams needed to bounce back from what was perceived as a decline, and I think rightly perceived as a decline in Denver, dealt with some injuries, and then got back to the top of the mountain, and just about the same age as Chase Brown, like a few days off, not even, I think, months off, just a few days off, I think. Weeks off would be the better way to put that in terms of age. So both of these guys, nearly 26 years old. Both of these guys from over the cap with contract valuations right around $9.4 million. And you'll see different projections from different people. But in terms of production, you talked about fantasy points, very similar fantasy output, which is not a great way to evaluate the value of a running back in the NFL. But Javonte Williams was better as a runner in 2025. Chase Brown was better as a receiver. Javonte Williams has had better receiving years in the past, but in this most previous season was not very impactful as a receiver, but 5 more rushing touchdowns, 0.4 more yards per carry, almost 200 more rushing yards for Javonte Williams overall, where Chase Brown had 300 more receiving yards and 3 more receiving touchdowns to even that out quite a bit. And so pretty similar statistical output, exactly the same age, give or take, not exactly the same birthday, but close enough. And so then the question is it worth it for the Bengals to put money into the running back spot if it is, say, a 3-year, $8 million per year extension for Chase Brown? And how different does that feel from the previous Williams we were using as a comparable in Kyron Williams in LA?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's it. Is if you're Chase Brown, which Williams do you want? Well, obviously you want the more money. But if I'm the Bengals, I use this Javonte deal. And you're right. I mean, Javonte, even so much so, he signed a 1-year, $3.5 million deal with the Cowboys last year. What's Chase Brown set to make this year? Final year of his deal, $3.6 million with those performance escalators in his rookie deal. So like it's just really close every step of the way. Chase Brown has been really productive. I want as many Chase Browns on my football team as I can have. But 3 years, $33 million sounds a bit rich for me, which is the Kyron Williams deal. And so I think that's a huge element here. And by the way, if you're Chase Brown, do you roll the dice a bit more? Javonte is a good example of it. You never know if you get hurt and then you're not the same and all of those. Like if you can lock in multiple years of salary here, you certainly are tempted to do that, especially at the running back position, especially with him turning 26 years old. So we'll continue the conversation. Should the Bengals do it? Would we do it? Extend Chase Brown? Let's be honest, it depends on the money. We'll continue the conversation coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Look, tax season doesn't have to take over your life. It doesn't. And this year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off, get it, Chase Brown reference, and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a local, trusted expert, start to finish, without the stress, without the guesswork. Instead of spending hours and hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person, or if you don't want to do that, which I get, you can connect online as well. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms, work to get you every deduction. And for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, all you have to do is file by the end of the month. Tick, tick, tick. That's February 28th. Get to TurboTax right now. TurboTax.com/local. TurboTax.com/local. to book your appointment today.
I think we're seeing pendulum swinging on the running back position that we've seen just in general, where there's this immense devaluation of the position. Back when after the Bengals did the extension with Joe Mixon, that looked like a deal that was like, man, you can't pay any running backs at the time. And now we're getting this mid-range existence. And Javonte Williams is helping to reinforce the idea of the mid-range running back deal that can be seen as a reasonable contract, a reasonable way to allocate your resources from a cap and cash perspective for NFL teams. The other side of this coin is Dallas did go out and found Javonte Williams for $3 million and got really good production there. The Panthers got Rico Dowdle for another low dollar deal. It was pretty good for the Carolina Panthers. So you can find these running backs. It's just a roll of the dice, right? Because there's no guarantee that Javonte Williams is going to step in and be a 1,200-yard runner with 11 touchdowns, nearly 5 yards per carry for the Dallas Cowboys last year. When they made that signing, it was a buy low, and those guys don't always hit. Sometimes the injuries and the tread or the wear on the tires is just too much, and those guys don't get back to what they were in the past or what their talent level was, and maybe it's not a scheme fit. So it is a roll of the dice, but that's the other side of the coin when you consider paying a running back. Even though there are these mid-level running back deals that exist, is that there are all these examples of the Bengals drafting a running back in the 6th round or 5th round who turned out to there we got that mistake again. The 5th round who turned out to be a pretty darn good running back, or these NFL teams scooping up bargain players who turn out to be totally fine, viable, good starting running backs in the NFL.
Yeah, Tyler Algier. I'm just kind of looking at the top running backs out there. Like, he would be one that I would say, all right, he's not in that upper echelon, but maybe he goes into a situation and is super productive and establishes himself that way. Kenneth Gainwell is someone, had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage for a crappy Steelers offense, really good pass catcher. And it's not like he was someone that teams were beating down doors to get last year. And those are the type of scenarios. I agree. I think that you can find it. I also think that if you have a mid-20s player that fits, that has the right mindset, I go back to the Bears finished the effing game. Like, I get it. Like, Zach was like, I talked to Chase about it. They need that. They need some edge. This team needs some edge, especially when they didn't have Burrow out there. He brings a lot of that for sure. But I love Chase's mindset. I love how he's developed the pass catching. He went to Illinois. I'm not sure they've thrown 30 passes in the past 10 years, football-wise. And there's going to be an Illinois fan that gets mad at me. But my point is like, he was not a pass-catching running back. And he quickly realized, hey, I'm on a team with Joe Burrow. I better learn these hands. And so he goes to Atlanta and he works out with Andre Yosevach in a wide receiver trainer. I forget his name, so I'm sorry about that. And it's worked. It's worked really, really well. I want to be in the business, if I'm the Bengals, of rewarding guys like that.
Yeah.
But it has to make it just has to make sense, though, because of what you mentioned, because of the different values that you can find these guys that can come in. I would rather not have to find it. I would rather just have a Chase Brown and be able to draft behind him. And maybe it is Taj Brooks or whatever the case is for the long-term option at RB2. But that's the tug and pull of it. And the $8 million per year salary, if you can get him for that, I would be in on that. And I think that's something that the Bengals should be in on as well.
Especially when you consider that it would go into the last year of the rookie deal, and then you make it a 4-year deal for $28 million. Let's just round up a little bit. 4 years for $28 million, $7 million per year, where you can bring some of that cap hit into the final year of that rookie deal. So the cap hits in the future never have to be all that large. And maybe the final year you have a little bit more salary, a little bit of a bigger cap hit, which is what NFL teams tend to do, which gives you an out at the end of the deal. Think Mike Gesicki next year, for example. Just I mean, different position and everything, but just to think about the contract, the Bengals are on the hook for something like $11 million or so. They save $9 million or so, I believe, if they were to cut Mike Gesicki next year, not this offseason, but going forward into the future, just because that's the last year of the deal. Just using another example there.
Yeah.
So you can build those outs into the contract and essentially treat it as a 2-year extension with a third-year team option if things are still going well with Chase Brown. And that could be a reason to do it as well. It's just a very it's just a very complicated question for this team, the way they approach the salary cap, right? Like, yeah, I would like to have Chase Brown around too. And we haven't even mentioned, you mentioned the steps he took as a pass catcher, also as a pass blocker, which you really need to do in this offense, and was a crucial step of development for Chase Brown to be on the field as much as he's been on the field the last couple of years, because he's always been I think, solid running back with athletic tools, but adding these other elements to his game is what made him a versatile enough piece to be on the field in this Joe Burrow pass-heavy offense that isn't going under center a ton, that isn't using play action a ton, that isn't using running back screens a ton, but can use Chase Brown viably as a pass protector when they need him, or as a check down piece when they need him, and he can turn those plays into first downs. And so those things are really valuable. And the last thing to consider is, man, is it said to be a weak running back draft class, right? So if they wanted to look ahead and be like, you know what, there's like 20 good running backs in this draft. We can get one in the 4th round. We can get one in the 6th round that we feel good about. And we can develop that guy, and he can maybe take over in the future. This isn't the year for it. Or maybe you feel that way about Taj Brooks, like you said, James. But if they don't get the extension done with Chase Brown, then next year we're talking about you don't want to find yourself in a situation like the Chiefs, where you're bringing back Kareem Hunt for the 3rd time, and you're just really desperate for something to keep your run game efficient. Because the one thing the Bengals did last year is they found their way to efficiency in the run game, and Chase Brown is the explosive element in their running game right now, right? You take away Chase Brown, Taj Brooks isn't going to be the explosive element. Samaje Perine, as much as I like Samaje Perine, isn't offering a ton of explosive runs. He's good. I love Samaje Perine, but a crucial piece in terms of the way the Bengals need to approach this offseason next year is finding explosive plays, especially in the run game, to punish teams that want to stay too high with their wide receivers and Joe Burrow at quarterback. And so a lot of reasons to really strongly consider securing your future and a piece that really fits in Chase Brown, especially if you can get that reasonable price tag. And Chase Brown obviously expressed his own interest in returning to the Bengals 3 weeks ago, the last time we talked about this.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what he because here's what I would do if I'm the Bengals. And people are going to, especially at the tail end of this, roll their eyes, but it's exactly what they should do. And I hope Duke is listening, because it's the reality of the situation, especially going into the combine. See what Chase Brown wants. What is he thinking? What's the ballpark, especially after this deal? Because I'm sure they saw this deal, his camp saw this deal, and it didn't like it. But if they're in this range, well, then I'm willing to play ball, and it makes sense. But this is not something that needs to happen tomorrow. I'm fine with it, especially if it's 3 for 24. I'm fine with it if it happened tomorrow. It'd be fine, and it wouldn't be tomorrow. It would be at the start of the new league year when he's officially extension eligible. All those things, but that's it. But the other one here is, and this is, it's going to come up between now and the draft. But as of today, we're recording this on February 22nd, and it's going to ring true February 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, all week long, and well into March. And I'm not speaking for Jake, but Jeremiah Love should be on the table at 10. And so I don't really give a damn what happens draft-wise. I know Jeremiah Love is a baller, and there's a real scenario where he's the best player available by a decent margin, depending on how this draft lands. And so that element of it, if you're the Bengals, it's okay to maybe do this deal with Chase Brown in May. Maybe you don't have to let it go all the way into July. But you can. I
mean, that would be normal for them, though. And extensions going into July. I mean, you're still doing it a year ahead of time, not the end of the world.
Yeah. I agree. But like the Love thing, that if they extended him tomorrow, they're not taking Jeremiah Love 10. But what if Jeremiah Love is the 3rd player on their board when it's all said and done, which is not out of the question? and Ruben Bain's gone and he was second. Obviously, Mendoza won't be on their board. Like you get my point. Like there's a scenario where that's the case. If that's the case, you know how I approach this thing. You draft players, not positions, and you have Chase Brown and Jeremiah Love as a 1-2 punch, which would be a lot of fun.
Maybe something we'll explore in a little mock draft Monday action for the people, which maybe was published. No, that'll definitely be published if we do that after we do this episode. Just trying to get the sequencing in order here. We'll wrap up on Chase Brown. Any final thoughts? And then want to throw some love and support behind Bengals legend, our guy, Willie Anderson, here to finish up the show coming up next.
Have you ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live? Well, I do. So I certainly want to enter in this. And you can too, live and in-person NBA Finals while FanDuel's giving you that chance. All you have to do with FanDuel is use your profit boost on any NBA future. Maybe you think it's going to be the New York Knicks winning the NBA championship. Maybe you think that the Thunder are going to repeat. Maybe you think that Steph Curry is going to magically heal his knee and dial it back to 2015 and be amazing, which I would love. That's not going to happen, though. Regardless, use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two, courtesy of FanDuel. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. And if you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep playoff run, now is the time to lock in. Lock in, Jake. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
I think the last thought I have on Chase Brown is, and I said this before, you really don't want to end up in a situation where your run game is decrepit because you just don't have the talent at running back.
Yes.
And if there isn't a viable path, and it's hard to see them. I mean, I know you mentioned Jeremiah Love. There's a great chance he's picked before the Bengals are on the clock at 10 anyway. Yep. They probably won't even have that choice. The second best running back in the class apparently is his teammate, according to the consensus that I've seen so far.
Yeah.
Price. And where would you have to pick him in a class that doesn't have a ton of running back talent? There's some good free agents this year. There's some good free agents at running back next year. Maybe next year's running back class is expected to be a lot better. Those are probably things you have to think about. But I'm with you on the timeline. Probably this is something that you have a framework for, and it probably extends until after the draft. But I think that's a pretty good reason to get an extension done with Chase Brown too. That just the difficulty in making sure that you have that level of player in the offense. Because Chase Brown, we talked about it. He does really fit what the Bengals are doing. Now, it just depends how much money you're talking about and how much that impacts their ability to do things for the rest of the team. Does it impact their ability to sign a right guard or roll with one of the young guys or a draft pick at right guard? Does it impact their ability to go find those impact playmakers on defense? If the answer is no, and it should be no to be abundantly clear about that, then go ahead and get the extension done. It's not like the Bengals have a ton of commitments on either side of the ball going into future years. And there are a lot of contracts that can be manipulated both this year and next year if they have financial issues or want to reallocate resources at that point. So I find myself kind of landing on the side of extending Chase Brown. I think that's where I am, despite my general reluctance to allocate a lot of resources to the running back position. But I think that I kind of fear what the offense looks like if they take a big step back in talent and don't adequately replace him in 2027 and into the future beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get it. You can't get worse there, right? And this offense isn't perfect, despite the kind of the narrative that it's defense, defense, defense. And so you need to be able to still, with a Chase Brown extension, give resources to that side of the ball. And that can't impact them. I agree. I think it's going to go. I think there'll just be other extensions ahead of it. I think that they'll be focused on free agency and in some of their other guys, Dalton Reisner, for example, and then get some of these guys, the Chase Browns, DJ Turners, Dax Hills, look at that. But I still think Chase Brown should be third in that pecking order. I think DJ and Dax should be ahead. I think the Jeremiah Love thing should be a factor because you just don't know And there's a real chance, like you said, he could be gone. You're right. But if you're committing that salary, it's a significant salary to Love. There's no doubt about it. There's a significant salary.
Wouldn't it be more than the potential $8 million per year?
It'd be, yeah, it would.
Isn't it $9 million a year?
4 for 30. Yeah, basically. And five, I think 5.4-ish in the first year. And this is slotted the 10th pick. For those wondering, it's not like position based or anything. But like if you do that, then you're not extending Chase Brown. You also may have the best 1-2 running back combo in the NFL, maybe by a wide margin. You never know. So that argument for another day. But my point is, this can wait a few months. The Jahmyr Gibbs contract isn't going to impact Chase Brown's extension. Like there aren't many running back comps, I think, that are going to really impact how the Bengals should view this. And by the way, if it impacts the way Chase Brown views himself, then he's going to have to play it out anyway, because they're not going to, I would be stunned if they gave him $12 million per year, $11.5 million per year, or anything like that, because they shouldn't. And it's just where they're at and where he's at and where they should be. So yeah, we'll see there. But you mentioned it. Go ahead.
It wouldn't be more, by the way. It's $7.85 million per year for the Bengals pick at 10 if they stick at 10 and pick there. So it's a little bit less than $8 million per year for whoever they pick at 10th.
Weird. I thought it was 4 for 29.
I see 4 for 31.4.
Yeah. Well, 4. Okay. So yes, technically it's a little less than $8 million per. Sorry, because of the 4th year. Duh. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So but right there. By the way, if you're getting, anyways, it's a Jeremiah Love argument. The point is, why would you rule out taking arguably the best player in the draft or one of the top 3 best players in the draft in February? It's pretty much where how I look at it. And some people are going to just roll their eyes at that. Maybe you are too. We haven't even talked about this, but like, I would totally be open to a potential Love pick as of now, but we don't have to have that conversation today. We will certainly have that another day.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to the linebacker conversation at 10, and it can even extend to the safety conversation at 10 a little bit. There's just a higher degree of safety thirst in Cincinnati right now. But yeah, you were starting to transition here. Wanted to make sure we give a little bit of love and encourage you to show some support for Willie Anderson as well. He made an announcement on Twitter that he's heading for a kidney transplant in March. He's having a transplant to avoid going on dialysis. He's been dealing with kidney disease for 10 years. He said, and honestly, I had no idea. I don't think anyone could have really extrapolated it. He has been handling it, I think, really well. He's coped with it really well. But I think great news to hear that he has a match for a kidney transplant to hopefully improve the quality of life. He said he's been dealing with energy deficiencies and stuff like that, and so good news that he has a transplant coming up. But obviously that's a big deal. So wanted to encourage everybody that if you missed that news somehow, make sure you're showing support for Big Willie, who obviously a fantastic player in Bengals history, great human being, and a guy that is really easy to support in terms of some of the Bengals legends out there.
Yeah, he just honestly, I think he needs that new battery pack is how I'll describe it, because you're right. He'll get this new energy boost. He'll feel brand new, and all for the next year's Hall of Fame. He needed the new kidney to celebrate the Hall of Fame induction, hopefully in 2027. Look, this stuff is scary, but the fact that he already has a donor and is in position to avoid the dialysis and everything that goes on when you're dealing with kidney failure, it's overall, it's good to hear that element of it. So Willie, will be thinking about you on March 3rd. Get that surgery and get to recovery, because you're going to feel much, much better after that surgery, and you can move on and move forward, hopefully, with your life. Because you're right, Jake. I don't think anyone really knew that for the past decade he was dealing with this and about to go on dialysis or all of those things. And so for him to hopefully avoid that and be able to move forward with his life after the transplant is going to be great.
Yeah. And let's stop playing games. Pro Football Hall of Fame. What are we doing here? Like, this is just another reminder that, like, some of these politics that go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the lack of recognition for right tackles in general, especially Willie Anderson, obviously near and dear to our hearts, is just crazy. And we just went through this with Ken Riley. Like, let's not deal with this sort of thing again. Not saying that Willie Anderson is going that direction. Excited for him to get healthy and all those things, but like, it's just like that reminder that we're all human, right? And so like, let's recognize the humans when they can appreciate the recognition.
Yep. That celebration is going to be crazy with the energy boost he gets.
Yeah,
because I'm sure he feels pretty crappy right now if dialysis is next. So yeah, Willie, once you get that surgery, you'll be feeling great. Everyone shoot Willie a message. I went to text him yesterday, Jake. I'm going to just pull back I went to text him yesterday, and I got a new phone in like November or whatever, and all my numbers didn't port. Like some did, some didn't. Of course, I don't have his number, so I had to slide into the DMs. But Willie, we're thinking about you, my man.
Shout outs to Willie Anderson. Make sure you make him feel the love. He deserves it. Absolutely deserves it. But we're going to wrap up there for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Until next time, thanks for listening. Hoo day, and have a good one.